I think that's a funny place to start. You just mentioned you're from Iowa, so you kind of got to like look at your GPS coordinates and be like, all right, am I good? Am I good to engage in this behavior now? So
Exactly. Especially when you wear the Riverbluff t-shirt around, you get some side eyes when you're traveling in the middle of Iowa. It's like, what is these potheads doing, you know? So
yeah.
yeah, it was that.
Well, I think the only thing I like about Iowa is I think it's the world's largest truck stop, and it's about I think all it. No offense, I, you
Yeah,
know.
We
absolutely.
all,
Because
I was say we grew up in Illinois, so I don't know that we're too
Oh,
far off
okay.
from what you're saying. So
Okay,
that's
I
our
didn't
home.
know if you were like real sensitive about me because I was about to call Iowa a godforsaken hellhole, but I was like, well,
Ah, whoa.
Well,
yeah.
I am from Iowa,
Oh, you
so
are, Josh.
Well,
That's kind of wild.
I'll give each of you space to introduce yourselves. I'm really excited to chat with you all today. Whoever wants to go first, flip a coin, but please introduce yourself to our audience.
I'll let Allie go first, please.
Okay, so my name's Allie Gansmer. I am one of the co-owners of all of the Riverbluff Collective brands. So we have our hemp side of the business and our cannabis side of the business. And I primarily oversee things like marketing and like customer and employee experience. So that's really my wheelhouse for the company overall. Pass it
Sweet.
to DJ.
Yep. Yeah, my name is DJ Laffelholtz. Thanks for having us today, Cole. I guess my role is I kind of helped come up with the idea maybe 6 or 7 years ago of being in the cannabis space. I connected with my brother and my sister who both lived out in Colorado at that time and kind of seen the market kind of emerging a little bit out there and thought of, oh, we can kind of get into it. I was in I guess the Army for 6 years after high school. So I joined up before 9/11, so kind of didn't know what I wanted to do after high school. So I joined the military, got deployed to Iraq for a few times with the 101st Airborne Division. Got a chance to move back home and start a family. And with some of the things I was struggling with my PTSD, I got a chance to connect with the therapist at the VA, and they suggested doing some pharmaceutical treatments and things like that. And that's something I wasn't really interested in doing. So they suggested cannabis, and at that time, I got into it a little bit, but not from a medicinal purpose. So went out to Denver and got a chance to hang out with Allie and fell in love with edibles and flower and dabs and everything. So changed my life and changed my perspective and our passion about it. So got a chance to start a CBD company back in 2019. At that time, Josh was one of our first employees. Josh is on the call as well, but kind of just organically, things kind of happen organically. And it's exciting. We have a business now that we operate in Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin in the cannabis space. Um, it's a whirlwind to say the least. Kind of hectic at times. It's invigorating. It's draining. But we have I think about 75 employees now that we kind of built over the last 3 years, and I think our first employee is Josh, and I'm gonna let him give his background too.
hey everybody, my name's Josh McGinnis. I am the lab director here at Riverbluff. Um, my background is in plant biology and chemistry. I've been interested in the plant since I was 16. Um, I've had quite a bit of experience in both the black market and the recreational white market, I guess you can say. So I joined the team back in 2019. DJ, Ali, and Joe had a vision for a company, and I had the same dreams. Um, they came with a little more of the business background sense. They kind of had an idea of how they wanted things done, and I came in and kind of implemented that plan. And that was 4 years ago, and here we are today. We all had the same dream, and we kind of divided and conquered our way to victory.
That's awesome. And is it I'm sure you'll appreciate this, Allie. Is it riverbluffcannabis.com?
That is one of our websites, yes. So riverbluffcannabis.com for our regulated marijuana products, and then Riverbluff Collective for our hemp side of the business.
Cool. Cool. I figured you'd appreciate me plugging the website right off
I
the
really
bat.
do.
Well, okay, so you said you're in the business in Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois. Is that correct?
Mhm.
That's cool. That's cool as hell. So I'm guessing that in Iowa and Wisconsin, you're in the hemp business. In Illinois, you're in the cannabis business, even though it does all the cannabis business, as you said, DJ.
That's exactly it. So for the last since 2019, we started producing hemp, manufacturing tinctures, lotions, edibles, things like that. And again, we see cannabis as medicine. So understanding that we, trying to get this out to as many people as we possibly could, we had to start in the unregulated hemp space, right? And that's kind of like as we talk about like politics and laws and things like that right now, we started in the on the hemp side. We created products. As Delta 8 and other different isomers came online, we were able to kind of tap into those different markets and scale our company pretty significantly. Back when we were selling just hemp, I was working a full-time job. Allie was working a full-time job. Josh, had to go away for a few months to, do some processing and things like that, and just to make sure that we could survive because the market was where it was at. We started when COVID kind of came through, and we kind of grinded the entire time and didn't really pick our heads up for the first few years, and that's kind of where we're at right now. So over the last few years, we were able to develop a number of SKUs, kind of create a lot of different processes for our recreational side, like you said, in the Illinois market. Like the intent was always to try to be a vertically integrated cultivation company, dispensary company, and a consumption lounge company in Illinois. The state made us wait, years and years with lawsuits and with COVID delays and the application process, just getting to a point where everyone knows what would happen with that. But it forced us to really, we had two choices: either get to work and work harder, or ship it in. And I think the way that we kind of went about it is we took all of our life savings and put it in with a consulting team that we have done a fantastic job with us. Lucian Dabadi and CLDB Consultants, Jeff Soskin and Dave Schweda with their team. I mean, they did a fantastic job helping us write our application material. They were very realistic with kind of expectations. They let us, pay some of their fees at the beginning, kind of wait a few months and pay more fees and things like that. They were fantastic with the way they rolled that out. And when we identified how many applicants submitted their application for a dispensary, we thought, oh shit, we just lost all of our life savings because there's whatever 4,000 people trying to apply for 30 licenses or 90 licenses, whatever it ended up being. So we generally thought that we was, worked our entire lives and tried doing this dream, and all the money was gone. I still don't know how we hit one of those licenses in the social equity lottery. I mean, generally we did hit the lottery. But when that happened, again, it's okay. We got this idea they think that we can do this license. How do we turn this idea and this opportunity into a tangible business? And again, it took another 2 years from that time to actually get our dispensary operational and get the approvals with all the zonings and everything on that side of the house. And Roselle, Illinois, again, we had a license to do anything in Chicago, and anywhere we could go, anywhere we wanted to go. We were 2.5 hours west of Chicago. It's our hometown is in East Dubuque, Illinois, right on the border of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois. So we had no idea where we were going to try to put this dispensary up or even where to start. So again, just picked up the phone, checked out, every night we go to bed is Googling, like podcasts like yourself, like Illinois legalization, because things were changing so regularly.
Mhm.
Kind of, I tapped in and talked to, at the time it was, I guess, Cassidy and Steen's offices and the representatives, and just, do you have any kind of insight on what this law is going to do or what's going to happen? And they were very honest and, hey, we can't tell you much of it because we're still kind of figuring it all out, but we may have something in May or we may have something in the fall session. And it's just constantly trying to figure out the different markets. And throughout that process, we built a strong team. We built our hemp company up to where we were manufacturing our own products. And
I was going to ask, did it help all that time while you were waiting? So you're not only waiting for the clarity, but then you actually apply for the license and you're waiting for the license. I feel like what sets your team apart, just from what I've heard so far, is that you are also participating in the hemp industry. And so is it correct for me to say maybe that made it easier because you were able to keep some dollars flowing in versus other people that had all their eggs in one basket? We want this license. And, no, I'm not dissing anybody. I'm asking you, was that helpful to have that extra line of revenue?
It's the only way we would have been able to survive.
Mm.
Absolutely. That's the only way that we would be here the way we are right now, is for the ability to be able to sell hemp products. And I still think that there's such a market for that across the country that it needs to be regulated. It needs to be normalized. And I think, again, we still get people, we have a license to sell dispensary products in Chicago. We have a license to grow cannabis products in Rockford. I still get people coming into my shop in East Dubuque and say, you guys sell fake weed. And it's like, I can't, there's nothing else I can say, right? We'll have to work through it. And so those are the things we're dealing with on a constant basis.
Well,
and to be brutally honest, it was kind of something more or less we fell into, because the whole time we were setting up this business for the recreational cannabis side, we built the hemp space as a training ground. We were hoping to figure out our SOPs and all of our stuff. So when we did get the recreational license, that we just kind of hit the ground running, maybe a couple of months ahead. COVID happened, it kind of pushed things off, and then we just kind of built this behemoth of a business on accident. It kind of, we intended it as a training ground, but just the way the world works, what we had envisioned to start, it kind of morphed into something different. So.
And it makes sense that you would view it as a training ground because it is the same plant. So I want to take on DJ's comment, and I'm sure you're going to appreciate this, DJ, because let's just clear it up for folks. Cannabis and hemp are the same plant. They are the same genus. This is just from high school biology, by the way, folks. They are the same genus. The reason we have a legal distinction is the Farm Bill, which is what allows you to do your business, right? Your hemp business. So anything with more than 0.3% Delta 9 THC is hemp. Anything over that is cannabis and is a Schedule 1 substance, soon to be possibly Schedule 3. Breaking news, folks. But hey, I wanted to make your point, DJ. It's not fake weed, it's real weed. And to just further prove your point, I recently looked at dispensary menus, and we don't have to pick on anybody. I actually just picked random products. These 4 products, actually these 3 products, every one except for the top, could be sold as hemp, but they're sold in Illinois dispensaries. This top product is only illegal, let's say, by 0.04. You can see here the THC levels are under the 0.3 percentage. So if what you have is fake weed, then what some dispensaries are selling in Illinois is fake weed, which I wanted to say that's not true. And maybe you could elaborate on that better than I did.
No, I think that's exactly it. And to that point, I think everyone kind of looks at hemp and marijuana and cannabis is where you buy it at legitimizes the quality of it or the effects of it. And I think that's, it's just misinformation. There's no doubt about that. I think when people kind of look at, it's very similar to like Cuban cigars. It's, there's a lot of countries in South America that grow really good tobacco that people love to smoke, but just because they can't access it, it makes them more desirable and cost more money and things like that. So very similar to those types of a scenario. I think cannabis is exactly in line with that.
Yeah.
It's not only the same genus, it's the same species. So.
Thank you. Yes, it is the same genus and species, folks. There's the only difference is a legal distinction. Let's just put it that way. There's nothing different about it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess just to further make our point, I've been pointing out that a really well-known brand, Cookies, is doing something you guys are also doing. They've started their own hemp business, and they're selling these, what they call THCA products in a lot of states that you would think are illegal. Well, it's not illegal, it's legal by the Farm Bill. And what's crazy is especially the THCA flower. It is that those products I just showed you could be sold as THCA flower, is my point. Legally through the mail.
That's just it. So we have products at our dispensary in East Dubuque that we sell at our hemp dispensary that, 28, 29% THC percentages. The terpene profiles are high, and people are coming back like, I can't believe this is doing exactly what I would get from similar, competition that I'm paying significantly more money for. I mean, like a quarter of flower that we'd sell at that store. I mean, Allie, what's the price point on that? Just to be fair.
Oh, you're muted, Allie.
Oh gosh. Okay. Depending on what it is, it could be anywhere around 25 to 30 bucks. We just have different tiers for our percentages too. So
yep.
The more you buy, the more you save on the marketing side. So just want to throw that out there too with the dispensary with ours. But yeah.
Nice.
And then obviously the taxes are different. So the tax rate is what the bigger probably difference is in those price comparisons too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. There are some stores in Illinois. There aren't many, and I've been wondering why. Maybe you'd be able to tell me. But there are some stores in Illinois that sell THCA product, and you can buy it for like $50 an eighth, which is relatively unheard of in Illinois because of the taxes that are applied in dispensaries. Why do you think that's not more of a prominent thing that we see? And sorry for asking you two questions. Do you sell your hemp in Illinois?
We sell our hemp. We sell our hemp products in over 300 stores in Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. I think it was 12. You're right. So not the flower that nothing's smokable in Iowa, but we sell like the hemp, the D9 hemp caramels and edibles and drinks and things like that in Iowa.
Is smokable flower illegal in Iowa or something? Smokable hemp?
Smokables are, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, but I think total of 12 states we sell our products in right now on the hemp side. That's increasing pretty regularly. We're connecting with different distribution channels that are making drinks right now. So some large brewers that are getting behind. They see the legislation changing, breaking in their favor in the states that they're operating in. And that's kind of, again, we're operating in Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin. And that's, unfortunately, the way it's set up right now is because legislation isn't clear in all three of those states. I think Iowa came out, gave a little bit more guidance that kind of says, hey, if you want to have a production facility in Iowa, these are the rules. Similar to Wisconsin, like if you want to be producing cannabis products in Wisconsin, these are the rules you need to follow. In Illinois, they haven't really done that. In May, they came out with some ideas and some changes, and I think a lot of people in the cannabis market and the hemp space, they were against it. I think a lot of the people in the cannabis, the top 20 growers and things like that, I think they were for it. So again, we don't get into the political side too much. We just want to grow really good weed. And however we need to sell it, we'll sell it because we know that it works and it gets people the desired effects that they need.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you as a hemp grower, before I ask you my next question, I wanted to make sure to give you the opportunity to ask, because I threw two questions at you. Why don't you think that's something we see more of in Illinois? Shops selling like flour, like I've seen some of these shops sell. It's like the same.
Yeah.
And cheaper.
Yeah, I think just from the standpoint of not knowing what the legal market, what they're allowed to do legally. I think a lot of people aren't as educated in the space as they need to. And that's part of our mission statement. I mean, we truly want to advocate and try to destigmatize the plant and the community. So we're trying to tell as many people as we can.
Yeah. And as far as moving forward, just as a hemp grower, I wanted to ask you as a group, do you think that the fair way to move forward is to have age requirement? So 21 plus, I think we can all agree on that. Testing, labeling. Some people like to add as a fourth thing, taxes. I don't like that, but I'm just saying that's part of the conversation. What do you guys think about the four things I just laid out? It's just like, that's how we move forward. Because everybody's talking about a crackdown. I think we just add those four things or three things. I guess if we have to, the four things, and we're good,
Absolutely. And that's the hat that we wear right now, right? So we have opportunities on both sides, the recreational side and on the hemp side. You know, we believe cannabis is medicine. You know, we believe that it's something that everybody should be able to grow in their house. If for, again, medical patients absolutely have the ability to do that. You know, from a recreational standpoint as well, most everyone who wants to be able to grow cannabis should have the ability to do that in Illinois. I believe that. We believe that, you know, for the last, you know, 10 years, 20 years, whatever the case in Josh's perspective. But, you know, I think as far as selling it, as long as it's coming from a producer who does do testing, who does have adequate labels, who's providing the resources and the education and ensuring that the products are meeting all the standards, it makes sense. We're all adults. I mean, who am I to say that you shouldn't be able to do something as an adult living in the United States? That's how we feel as a family for sure.
I think too, like as a mother too, I have little ones at home. So like when it comes to those things like packaging, labeling, like in at least my opinion and our team's opinion, like it's for us, we do it anyway. So because it's the right thing to do when it comes to those age limits and you know, the labeling, but the testing, certainly. I think any reputable company should have those on file and do those often. And you know, we do sell our hemp products in about 275 other retailers too. So we have our store in East Dubuque, but for us, you know, being next to other brands on the shelf, we would want the whole product line to be reputable. So for that to be part of what hopefully would become maybe rules or regulations, I think would be very helpful for us to legitimize, you know, the practices that we're doing anyway, and just our products overall. So we're absolutely for that. When it comes to taxes, yes, it'll help the state. So sure, we'll say yes. But when it comes to consumers, obviously, you know, the lower these prices are in these products to get them in people's hands, you know, that's what we're for too. So I know it doesn't always go hand in hand that way, but if it's what it takes to make it regulated, then I would say that we support that for sure if we have to.
That's it.
Yeah,
I
and
think for us,
oh,
go ahead.
And for me, I think it's imperative to hit those first three to normalize the market. I mean, if we ever want to see ourselves like on a grocery store in a shelf next to other products, at the end of the day, like we have to treat it like that. You know, make sure that what you're putting in is actually in there. Label requirements, those are just imperatives in the industry overall. So to hit those marks, it's like as we're hitting them, it's like it makes it a thing. I feel like taxes, you know, those will probably come whether they like them or not. So
Right.
I'll brace for them.
Allie, I really liked what you had to say, and it kind of made me realize that maybe, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's another interesting part of your approach. It sounds like maybe part of your plan is building it. You said something to the effect of like building brand aware. You're practicing that anyways, right? And it's maybe I'm just implying it, so I'm giving you the opportunity to clear it up. Or is it fair for me to say that this strategy of also selling hemp in Illinois could be used to build up brand awareness so that when you're actually in the dispensary, people are like, oh, I know that brand. I've consumed those products before.
Absolutely. And that's something that a bridge that we're going to have to cross very soon with having our craft grow license that we recently acquired and were rewarded. So, you know, you have obviously larger companies that have their brand as a dispensary, but then there's sub brands of the same companies. And that's a conversation that we will have to, you know, have and talk through. You know, there's Riverbluff as a whole collective company, but then as we go into the craft grow space, you know, there's different approaches that we can take. We're very proud of our brand. We want this to be like our staple, but will that resonate with consumers? Will stores want to carry it if it has our brand on, and we also have a dispensary too? Does that make it tough for us to be competitive? We don't know. So that's what we're going to talk through, but our brand is kind of the heartbeat to our whole company. You know, we called it Riverbluff because we grew up right on the bluffs of the Mississippi River. And that's where that name came from. So it is really important to us. And we're definitely connected to it, but we understand that we may have to think a little bit differently to stay competitive and to get our products on shelves at the end of the day to get to consumers. So bigger conversation for a short period of time from now, though, because it's all happening pretty fast.
Sure. Did I hear you correctly that, so just to back up and make sure I'm understanding correctly, you won the dispensary license and you acquired the craft cultivation license, is that correct?
Yes. Yep, that's
Sweet.
correct. So we, was it about 2 weeks ago, we got our final approval from the state. So we acquired the building a week ago, 2 weeks ago. It's just so fresh right now. So it's all kind of blending together, but we have not announced that yet. So this is the first time we're really openly talking about it. So we thought we'd save it for an important moment. So, so thank you for having us on. But yeah, we, as you just said earlier, we've always, you know, aspired to be a vertically, just a vertical company. And I think for us, it's important. Again, it goes back to that product quality. At the end of the day, right now in Roselle, we're selling other people's brands. So we, you know, really look at, you know, the brands that we're partnering with, who we're selling, you know, our approach in Roselle, we definitely want to partner with our, you know, the craft grow partners that we have. There's not too many out there right now. So we're saving some shelf space for when they come online. And we also have, our team's done a really good job of, you know, if we want to partner with a company to sell their products, we will do a cultivation tour. So a lot of the companies have been very open and letting us come in and look at their spaces. There's been a couple that didn't, and we don't carry their products yet. So, you know, it's one of those things that for us, it's important for that quality control, and, you know, just what goes out to the customer at the end of the day.
Yeah. So pay attention to the products they don't carry, folks. Hey, I wanted to ask, are you in any like business associations in the state of Illinois?
Yeah, we tapped in with Scott Redmond and the Illinois
We've had him on the show.
independent. Yeah, Scott's a great guy. He's an advocate for sure. Allie's tapping into some other groups like the Women Leadership Networks, and I think some people that we're talking with are currently members of that group that we're engaging with.
The Illinois Women in Cannabis group. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, we have a lot of, from an advocacy standpoint, like we believe in it. We believe in community service. You know, I was on the school board, our local school board, for 8 years, helped change policy. We worked with like a lot of local city officials and the mayor and then the local aldermen to help bring cannabis legalization to our hometown over the last few years. Now I think there's 1 dispensary here that's operating, 2 more that are coming online here in the next 6 to 12 months. So it's providing a significant amount of revenues to the city. And again, our town it was crumbling. We're again right on the border of Wisconsin and Iowa, east of Butte. It's our hometown. We believe in it. And one of the things that we really believe in is creating opportunities. And back in May, we had, you know, legislators telling us, hey, your 40 employees are not going to have jobs 2 weeks from now because we're going to get rid of Delta 8 and these hemp-derived products. So we said we need to pivot very quickly and have opportunities for our team members to have jobs, you know, in the fall in case something happens. So we're opening a little bar cafe that we're kind of spending some time and energy into. So again, it's just taking the opportunities that cannabis is giving us, reinvigorating our community and reinvesting it right back into our town. And it's making real impacts, and it's pretty sweet. It's awesome, actually.
That's really cool. Well, hey, I feel like I've been spinning us in all sorts of directions. Was there anything like specifically that I wanted to give you the space? Like I mean, we just made a really exciting announcement, you know, that you just acquired a craft cultivation license, but I wanted to give you the space. And I mean, you're always welcome to come back on too if you have new things going on. But anything specifically you wanted to come on and talk about today?
Yeah, for myself, I think just generally introduced our brand a little bit. I think kind of showing the consumers and the professionals in the Illinois market, you know, a little bit about our background and who we are as a company and who we are as people. You know, I think we're pretty humble when it comes down to it. We realized that we were provided an opportunity, you know, to do something really special. I think we are the unicorns in the entire state when it comes to cannabis. You know, I think we have the aspirations to be an MSO, but I think with that comes a responsibility to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind along the way. So everyone that we can advocate for, you know, bring the prices down as low as we can to try to increase volume. It's important. You know, when I go to, you know, Taste of Roselle to talk about, you know, cannabis and how it's going to impact the community, I'm hearing a lot of consumers saying that they're driving to Michigan because the taxes are too high. Prices are out of line in a lot of ways. So again, for us, you know, fair, and I think there's real concerns with that. So, for us, we sit back and we grew up poor in a lot of ways and without much, and we've earned everything we've gotten so far, and kind of entering the space and always having ideas of what we stand for as a company and what we want to do. Ultimately we want to get as much cannabis out to the state, and eventually to the Midwest, into Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa and Missouri. Again, we're doing that on the hemp side. That's happening. The brands are growing, and people are following along, but not just selling cannabis. That's easy, right? Like growing really, really good quality cannabis, with having a craft license, we don't have to worry about doing, 50, 60,000 square feet of flower. We dial in our rooms and grow really, really top shelf quality at normal prices, because that's what the standard should be. That's what we're hoping to do. But in addition to that, we want to make sure we connect with the veteran community. We want to connect with the mental health community, be advocates in those spaces as well. There's a lot of our employees that feel very strongly about different advocacy groups that they participate in, and helping support them as best we can. We want everybody to come in and work for our company and buy in and become part of the group and want to stay here for the next 30 years and retire here. And I think there's a lot of creative ways that we're going to be able to do that, from retention, and I'm excited to be able to display that and kind of like throw that out there now, and hold us accountable for the next 20 years to be doing exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And I wanted to make sure you probably appreciate this, but you'll appreciate this, but it opens the door to a bigger conversation, I think. So ideally, everybody wants to operate in multiple states. It's like ideal. You start a beer company or a soda company or pizza, whatever. You want to be sold in as many places as possible. And it's interesting because in cannabis, somehow that's been given a bad name. And it's because I think multi-state operator, has been conflated with evil. A lot of people think like, oh, especially in Illinois, and it's because I would say there's misconceptions, because a lot of people say those damn MSOs, it's the reason the prices are so high, and it's the reason home grow is still illegal. And that's not incorrect, but it's also not completely correct, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Folks, it just so happens that a lot of the MSOs are, in my opinion, let's just say, not always working in good faith. But that just happens to be something that we experience in Illinois, I guess is what I'm saying. Like ideally, you're a multi-state operator with good ethics and morals, and like you say, you stand for principles like home grow. I just wanted to say that because I feel like in Illinois, like I say, people have conflated MSOs to equal evil, and that might be mostly true in Illinois, but it doesn't mean the statement itself is true. Would you agree with how I just broke that down?
Yeah, that's very fair. And I think sometimes in cannabis is so difficult trying to understand how to, become profitable in an industry like this. I mean,
Right.
it's, and having no background from like what type of projections I should be looking at and things like that. So, the MSOs, I wouldn't go as far as say they're evil. I hear that's definitely the sentiment by some of the people in the community. Those are people that I have to work with. Those are the people that I have to buy my products from, and price them at where they want me to price them at right now. So it's certainly an opportunity to kind of maybe just help explain where some of the shortfalls might be, and that gives us a unique opportunity to have real conversations with CEOs of these major companies to say, hey, this is our direction. This is the way we're trying to think of taking the market, the way that we try to go. How do we work together to maybe bring prices down or create options that can be brought out for all the consumers in the state? We shouldn't have to be, we shouldn't be priced so high where everyone can't afford it. That's unacceptable to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess just on that note, what do you think about the idea that, and I still haven't named any names, I feel like we know who we're talking about for the most part. What do you think about the fact that these companies, I mean, I know it's a conversation, like you said, you can open up, but yeah, it sounds like these companies are fundamentally opposed to lower prices. They view Illinois and, restricting licensing as an investment, a return on investment.
It definitely is. And when I thought I had an opportunity to win a license, I said, this is amazing. I want to keep these prices as high as possible so we can get our return back, our investors paid, and things like that. Like seeing how the lottery system came out and and who won some of those licenses, it left an immediate bad taste in my mouth. So just trying to navigate those waters in the cleanest way possible by not burning bridges and by not doing things like that. One could say certainly that there are certain groups that may want to keep prices high, and that's easy to identify when you look at what prices are in Colorado, Oklahoma, Missouri, even Michigan. Like, we have to be thoughtful of growing the industry. Again, we're the new kids in the block. It's easy for us to say, hey, they did it wrong for the last so many years. We had no idea what their obstacles were at that time, and it'd be unfair for us to even second guess that or play Monday quarterback. So we're mainly focused on growing really quality cannabis, and then we get to determine what we get to sell our products for. And again, if you look at the products that we're selling on the hemp side, $20 for an edible all day, every day for 200 milligrams of product. I mean, it's not rocket science. Excuse me. It's a commodity that you can produce, and the better you can produce it, the more you can produce it. It's just, again, we're excited for our opportunities, to say the least.
Yeah. And I guess just to be a little fair, I don't want to just attribute everything to evil and malice. I'll just quote the former director of Illinois NORML, who had concerns back in the day. Because maybe, like I say, it's not that these people are just like, ha 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 ha, let's charge more, right? Dan Lin, who's not a business owner, like I said, he was the executive director of NORML, had concerns that the fees for the business side of things, like cultivation centers for the dispensaries, they'll be so significant that the investors for those businesses are going to want a return on those investments. Under the state's rules, a cultivation center would be charged, and this is the original ones, $25,000 just to apply, $200,000 if it's approved each year, $100,000. And so basically his concern was that eventually just trickles down to the patients, right? But to your point, maybe it's not all born out of malice. Maybe it's just crunching numbers and like, how do we make a return on our investment?
I think that's it. I think I got a chance to see one of your articles within the last few weeks. Groups growing outside, although it's not allowed in the CRTA right now, it makes sense. I mean, the idea for the ease for growers who've been doing this for 30, 40 years, who have the skill set to be able to grow really good cannabis, the barriers to entry doesn't make any sense. We're getting quotes from contractors that are very well respected. I mean, cannabis contractors, GCs that are putting buildings together. They say, hey, if you want to have when you have a fully functioning cultivation center, you're looking at 11 to 13 million dollars for a piece of real estate. With that is, come on now, that doesn't make any sense at all. So for us, that's just it. We're trying not to leverage much of our opportunities for borrowing money and capital and things like that. So we're doing our build out in phases. We're trying to be very thoughtful. We may not do an extraction lab. We may not do our infusion lab and kitchen and things like that until we get cash flow coming in to be able to do those things. So certainly the idea of having, significant, a couple $100,000 of application fees and things like that, it's keeping a lot of people out of the market that should be able to play and participate, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious thank you for checking out and mentioning the outdoor cultivation thing. I'm curious, my angle on that wasn't, some people were asking, are you trying to make it so that that's not a thing in Illinois anymore? And I'm just like, no, I want it to be so that everybody can do that if they want to. Not only you with a license, but frankly, me, because I have a medical card, so I'm allowed to grow at home. Why can't I grow it outside? Like, do I have to build a structure like they built and put cameras on it like they did? I'm just joking, but that was really my point in pointing that out, not to stop the activity from happening, but to encourage the Illinois Department of Agriculture to allow craft cultivators. So like I started this show with, I asked you all if you viewed the hemp thing as kind of fundamental to you keeping going and everything else. And that's what I started to wonder when I heard about this outdoor cultivation. I'm like, well, maybe folks that aren't in the hemp business like you, or some people are in the restaurant business, whatever, so that they don't, they can have other revenues. But people that aren't in that business, maybe like if the Illinois Department of Agriculture would just give them a lifeline and say, hey, you can grow outside and you can make edibles just so you can get a little bit of cash flowing in so that you can pay for your freaking facility that we require you. You know, that's been my angle. And I was just curious, as a craft cultivator, do you agree with that angle? Like, does it seem sound for others?
Yeah, if I talk to, 100 and, owners of licenses and dispensaries and cultivation licenses in Illinois, 90% of those people would say, let's keep it with the professionals and keep it on an industrial standpoint. I believe that everyone should have the right to do it. There's no doubt about that. I think, just simple changes to CRTA. I'm talking to, we're talking about individuals like ourselves who don't have capital to stand these types of things up without significant investment from third parties and banks and credit unions and things like that don't want to participate in the space yet. It's not allowing multiple licenses at one site. Again, if we're talking about a $10 million piece of real estate that has an additional 20,000 square feet of flowering ability, why not allow a couple social equity teams to cohabitate and co-locate and create markets and create opportunities for success. And that's going to bring price down. That's going to be able to get more people into the market. Those types of changes are in my mind, something that could be addressed in the next 6 to 12 months, probably.
Let me ask you that question a little bit more bluntly. When you heard that information, were you kind of like, what the fuck? Like, why can't we do that? The information that people were allowed to grow outdoors. I mean, you're trying to get all this capital and these investors and stuff. Like, when you heard what I found, were you like, well, what the fuck? That would have been nice to know that or that would have been nice to be able to do, rather. Did that thought come across? No?
Certainly did. And we heard about that for a little while. And I've even asked the Department of Ag kind of, several months ago, I'm like, hey, we have a piece of land that we're looking at doing. We know other groups that are doing these types of things. Can we do the same thing? And they said, that's not allowed. And it's like, okay. So, but again, we understand that we're not in here asking questions and things like that. We're just trying to focus on how we do our business the best and things like that, for sure.
Yeah. I was just curious because I've been trying to ask craft cultivators who describe the troubles, like when you heard that information, because it seems pretty cheap. Like, it seems like I could set up one of those. Like, they just had like poles up, some nets, and some cameras. I mean, when you talk about investments, it's like a trip to Home Depot,
Absolutely. And that's just it. We talked to a lot of different groups in the space, and we're talking to, craft cultivation license holders right now currently that don't have access to capital, that are going to have to, do something with their license before the state, comes in and says, you need to give it back to us. And it's so unfortunate. A lot of these teams spent tens of thousands of dollars for rent and just to hold facilities and things like that, hoping that laws will change and hoping that they'll be able to produce a business and create a business that'll produce enough product to be able to pay their bills back. Even the idea of not going to 14,000 feet of canopy space a couple months ago, it didn't make any sense. It still doesn't make any sense why we have to get staged out knowing that the market tells us that there's not enough cannabis in the space. So just, again, without being argumentative or question, it's just, we're here to just talk about it and be open and ultimately get answers on a lot of these questions a lot of these different teams have, certainly.
Yeah. Well, just a few more questions before we go. I wanted to ask, what do you think about like other markets like Michigan and Oklahoma? And is there any reason that you wouldn't participate in those markets?
Yep. So we actually do a lot of business with a group up in Michigan that helps us produce some edibles on the hemp side of the business. They kind of gave us some recipes and just helped us with some different distribution networks. On the recreational side of Michigan, it'd be difficult for us to start right now a business in that market based on competitiveness and the ability to create opportunities for profits right away. It's just too hard. Right. Same thing with Oklahoma. We flew down and met Sammy Equinox at one of his grows down there. And again, similar situation where it's just too far outside of our backyard. We're more of the Midwest that we'd like to tap into. I know Missouri would be an opportunity that we'd be interested in, but again, very difficult to acquire licenses, and we don't have the capital to buy any licenses at this time. So, our focus is operating our dispensary in Roselle as best we can. Try to get as many customers coming through and build a really solid loyal base, and then ultimately over the next 6 to 9 months, figure out ways to procure all the equipment and build out our facility to grow the best cannabis in the state of Illinois. And then we can kind of focus our attention, on the rec side, certainly to Wisconsin and Minnesota as those licenses are going to become available. Minnesota first, obviously, and then Wisconsin the next 1 to 2 years probably is what everyone's thinking, or everyone's kind of going that direction or thinking that way. But yeah, I think the hemp side, it's doing it right. I mean, we're selling our products consistently across the Midwest, and people are loving it, the quality and the consistency. So when those other states do open up, our brand will be out there in front to kind of say we've been doing this for a few years and you're accustomed to our quality. We're excited about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for breaking that down. I mean, if I could just put it shortly for people in a bottle, it's kind of hard to profit off of like $50 ounces in Oklahoma. Like, how do you where's the profit margin, right?
Yeah.
So like, or in Michigan, that's another example. They're selling like $100 ounces sometimes, $5 grams of concentrate. Like, okay, I'm gonna profit $2.50. Like what? There's no room for profit in markets like that. So thank you for explaining that, because a lot of people ask, like, why are some people in Illinois hesitant to join some of those markets, but willing to try to get involved in Illinois? And it's because of the disparity in licensing that we've created with our structure. Like, less licenses mean that the price can be set higher for profit, so.
Yeah. And that's just, and that generally, I'm not an accountant. I used to work at a bank, but I was more of a business development guy. As my old bosses would say, I'm not a banker when it comes to that kind of stuff. But when you're hearing that, when you go out to the community and say, poll 100 consumers of cannabis, what percentage of people are buying cannabis products from dispensaries? Probably less than 30% is what my guess would be. And again, that's so anecdotal, but people are going to other states, people are buying from the guys and girls they've been buying from for the last 15, 20 years. That, again, the quality is just as good as the stuff that's in dispensaries right now. So what's causing people to go in there? And the
Right.
price is not the reason for people to make that switch into the space, the recreational space.
I realize this might be a tough question, but do you think that with everything we just discussed, that Illinois cannabis is more pro-business than it is like pro-consumer? Like, it's more business friendly than consumer friendly?
I think from a purchasing standpoint, from a price point standpoint, I think it's advantageous for businesses that are in the market operating currently. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily very easy for startups to get on board. So it's not necessarily business focused. It's current business focused, certainly, but just not necessarily for consumers. I think that's very fair to say.
I think one of the things too to think about, if we were to take our practices from our hemp space and look to do the same thing in Illinois in the regulated space, we as a team currently would not be able to do it. We rely pretty heavily on our consulting team that already has experience. I mean, just DJ spoke to it earlier, like just their knowledge of the rules and regulations. And, even when we, go through inspections, it's like we learn different things every single time. We've passed them, thank goodness. But like, there's the average business owner, it's a lot more in depth than a traditional retail store. So I think when we think about like business friendly, maybe on the price side, sure. But when it comes to business operations, it is extremely difficult to, make sure there's no discrepancies in your vault, make sure, there's 65 cameras in our dispensary. So, there's a lot of things that business owners have to go through too, that make it challenging. So I don't know that it's necessarily friendly in any way across the board. But we're here, it's regulated, it's further than some states are. So we'll just keep kind of sharing our story and trying to get products out to consumers at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Well, I've got one more question for you, but I wanted to give you background maybe on where that question came from, based on it's actually a really old clip. It's just a short excerpt we'll watch, but it's reporting from Oregon, and it talks about, Oregon could be looked as an analog to Oklahoma and Michigan, right? So that's, like I say, where this comment comes from. And, we're talking about limited licenses and stuff. So the end of this little clip, you'll like basically hear exactly my comment, but I just wanted to play this for folks. This is a good clip for history. So we actually interviewed this guy once too. So check that out.
Do you look back at it and think maybe we should have put some caps on production or on the licenses?
You know, my job's not to second guess that. I'm just the administrator. But if you're asking me, I don't think so. Everyone just wanted to be the first in, to have their stake in it, and they were willing to take the risk to be a part of that market. So I don't think that's necessarily bad. And in a control market, they'd be left out. They'd never get that chance.
You think all this cheap product would at least be great for the people selling weed. But the same free market system that's given Oregon a ton of growers has also flooded the state with a ton of dispensaries.
Saturation is everywhere. It's on all.
The part that I thought was going to play, but I think it must just be later in the video. Oh yeah, it is later in the video. They basically wrap up that thought by saying one group that's never going to complain about the low price of weed, consumers. You know, so that's where that comment came from. I wanted to just give you some background so it didn't seem like it was coming out of nowhere.
No, we still do.
Um,
Yeah, if we can keep prices as low as we can, I mean, that's generally with I guess our model, I guess the way that we see it is we're so early in the licensing rounds that if we do bring the prices down, and we're able to bring the prices down to a more competitive range to where you're competing more with the black market and just people traveling or even being able to afford it, it makes a lot of sense for us to gain some market share that way and buy some goodwill with the community.
I think too, like our dispensary is 2.5 hours away from our home. So sometimes we'll have to, or we choose to go purchase. And if those prices were lower, that'd be great. So we're consumers too at the end of the day. So, you know, we're all for low prices, but we also need to have profits for our investors, obviously, and keep the lights on, pay rent at the end of the day.
I promise one more question. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, and I think by by keeping the prices where they're at, the one thing that kind of lost my train of thought.
It happens. It happens. Yeah. Maybe this will bring it back. I apologize. I promised one final question, but this thought just brought up another. And I'm not trying to jinx us. Like I wouldn't wish this on you at all, but do you worry at all about like, okay, you come online, here I am, Riverbluff. I got my flower and I'm ready to put it on the shelf. And then the operators drop the price floor because they've been on the market for years. Are you worried about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a concern, right?
It's just a hypothetical, so like we don't have to devote too much time to it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, certainly, I mean, we've seen the exact same thing happen on the hemp side back in 2018, 2019. We were going to be buying, we're going to take some of the money that we made to finance some extraction equipment, and we just seen that price of hemp just crash. So it's always on top of mind for us. Again, if prices do come down, that wouldn't be the worst thing for us. I think long term, our story, with the consumers knowing that we weren't the ones setting the prices that high in the first place, I think they're gonna hopefully, have some some brand loyalty with us, over the next few years. And cannabis is like dog years, right? So like what's gonna happen 12 months from now or 6 months from now, that's like what's gonna happen 8 years from now. So like we're more focused on, everything else that's gonna happen the next 30 days. Everything else that we're doing with THCA drinks and things like that.
I think that's why it was important for us to get vertically integrated too. So I think we're very reliant on the prices that the cultivators set when we make purchases, but when we're growing our own and we're able to, set those prices, we can control that a little bit more, at least in our dispensary. And will always be the smaller group compared to larger corporate organizations, but we all are in the same space. So we all have to do DJ's point earlier, we have to work together. But when we have our own cannabis that we're growing and selling, we can manage that a little bit better than just having to rely on what the prices are, when we purchase from others.
Yeah. Go ahead,
And I
Josh.
think it'd be, yeah, and I think it'd be great if we can get the prices down a bit. I think the market, and leading into where my last thought, I think Illinois has rolled their plan out right. I think they've seen places like Oregon and Oklahoma drop the ball on the industry. And I'd rather have the state be a little cautious and roll this out to make sure that the businesses who are getting in it and are investing money are getting their investments back. And I think, as the years go by in this program, as we kind of figure out the right number of licenses for the state, that will kind of also the supply demand curve will kind of equal out, and the price will kind of be where it needs to be. So
Why do you think we don't take that approach with like restaurants?
I don't know. That, I mean, like I one of the new states rolling out their program is just basing it on their population. You get so much per population, which is, a good way to think about it is just so
Yeah.
you don't oversaturate the market. And, we're investing money in it. We want to make sure that the prices we see today are the prices and not
Yeah.
in a year from now. Like Oregon is like the worst case scenario because you can grow outdoor weed everywhere there and everybody's doing it. And then the prices decline, and then half the recreational weed on that market ends up going all east and everywhere else.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's
I
gonna
get
create
it.
another problem.
I totally get where you're coming from. I just mean like it's generally accepted that like 80% of restaurants go out of business in the first 5 years. So like I understand like where you're coming from. You want to protect your investment. Like that makes sense. It makes total sense. But I'm asking, like, it just seems interesting that we are taking this approach. Like it seems like Illinois' approach is to, that's where I was coming from earlier when I say more business friendly. It's like we have to ensure the success of these businesses. And we don't take that approach with any other industry, it seems.
Yeah.
Except for maybe banking, too big to fail. You remember that?
Yeah.
A little bit different. I want to be very clear. That's way different. But
For sure.
you get where I'm coming from, where it's like, why are we doing this? I
we're-
want to say I
we're-
get it from your perspective, a business owner, why you like these policies, but it's like, why are we doing this? It's weird.
The policies are challenging, certainly, even for startups and for everyone who went through the process to get licensed, to be able to actually stand the license up and communicate with the Department of Ag and IDFPR. And it's incredible challenge. I think that's maybe part of the reasons why
You're
they
gonna
don't
miss the
allow a
ice
whole
cream
lot of people.
truck.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, they're in Dubuque. We got the town clock right behind us going off. So I apologize. We do believe in business opportunities for everybody, generally speaking, and with all of the regulation that goes into it, there's not many teams that can pull it off. I mean that. By the way the system's set up currently, there's as again as the boogeyman disappears in this industry, as the sky doesn't fall down and crime doesn't increase and opioid rates go down and property values increase. I mean, as these data points prove out, it's going to continue to loosen up. And I hope that, there's people in the Illinois market, both at the legislative level and at the business level, that are open to that and letting other people participate because it's necessary.
So my last question that I want you to all cook on for just a moment is, what tips or suggestions do you have for other people that may have their license now and that they're trying to get in the industry? But before, I want you to cook on that for just a second, because you just brought up you have THCA drinks. Tell me about it. Or can you tell me about it yet? Is it a new thing?
Absolutely. It is. Yeah, we've been selling lemonade for a little while.
What's the dose?
Josh, you want to speak to that?
Josh would know that.
We have a 10 milligram Delta 9 drink and then a 25 milligram Delta 8 drink.
Cool. Why? I'm just curious. Why don't you have a higher dosed than, what did you say? 10
and 25.
10 and 25. Is there a reason? Just, is it good starting dose? Or I'm only asking it because for me, I'd have to drink like several. I'm looking for like a good high dosed drink, you know? So,
Sure. I mean, I guess our market hasn't necessarily bore that out. And I know a lot of the
fair.
drink markets, you know,
It's generally a starter product, I would say, you know, like people
yeah,
that are trying to tiptoe into cannabis, they're like, oh, I'll have a drink. So maybe that explains it.
I think, yeah, and the idea behind it too was kind of be that social replacement, because as where we're at, we've said it a few times on the border of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois, alcohol is very heavily used in the state. There's in general around here. So we were looking to have more of that lower dosage for people to consume socially and maybe have a few throughout the night. Now me having a baby recently, I can have about 5 milligrams. So having the ability to have like smaller dosages, and then increasing that, we were talking about doing like little shots. So that way those are more heavily concentrated for users like yourself. To have that range is nice, but it was the ideas behind that social replacement for alcohol.
Nice. Cool. That makes sense. Well, I asked you all, you know, if you have any suggestions or tips on anybody that might be in a similar situation as you or close to it. What do you got for us?
I think from my perspective, try to connect with as many people as you possibly can. You know, go to the, you know, promote and advocate and connect with, you know, there's teams like Illinois News Joint, you know, Illinois Podcast, a lot of different groups. I mean, like there's influencers that we tapped into and connect with, like the Sesh Bus. Just really get down to the community level and understand who your consumers are, what they want. You know what I mean? Just because you have a license doesn't mean that you're the expert. And we genuinely believe that, you know, we walk into rooms and we want to be the dumbest people in the rooms. You know, we want to be hungry dogs run faster. That's kind of the mantra that we have. And no one's going to give you anything in this industry. If you have a license, they're going to look at you and wait for you to fail because of how difficult it is and say, well, shit, if I would have that license, I would have did it this way. You know, and just get out and talk to people. You know, my email, I'll provide it to you. And anybody that wants to connect with me, I can definitely try to advocate and provide as much resources as I can to them. But just keep hustling. It'll get there.
I would say for me, it's all about being persistent. I would say every single day, there's probably 4 to 5 hurdles that we have to overcome, whether they're big ones, small ones. About a month ago, we were told our POS system, our payment processor on our hemp space, could not process credit cards anymore. No cards. They just completely dropped us. So we had about 2 weeks to find a completely new payment processor for our wholesale clients, for our retail clients. I mean, we're talking about significant transaction volume. But if we would let all of those small roadblocks get to us over the last, 4 or 5 years, we wouldn't be here. So I think it's like having that good support system. Yes, it's with my brothers and Josh, and sometimes we drive each other crazy, but we find our balance between each other. And just be persistent and keep your eye on the reason why you're doing this. I think that's at the end of the day, we can get through all of these challenges together. But if we keep looking down the field as to why we're doing this, all of those little kind of, nuisances or setbacks just become problems that we need to find solutions to. So that'd be my biggest input there.
For me, it would be finding key partnerships. I think that has given us the biggest kind of bump. We've always prided ourselves on doing the work ourselves, but as we've grown as a company, we realized we can't do everything ourselves. We've worked with a couple key manufacturers to help us produce some things, and that's really helped us out. And just knowing that to get to the top, it's going to take more than yourself. So we found some good key strategic partners that have helped us along the way.
Awesome. Well, before we go, I just wanted to give you a little bit more space. Anything that we didn't mention today, we plugged the websites. I'm sure they can find social media from there. Anything we didn't mention?
And and like websites, that's like some of the challenges that we face as well. We've had Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts
Oh,
that
sure,
we
sure.
get a couple thousand people, and then they just take it away. It's like, oh, this account doesn't not active anymore. So like we've faced a lot of that kind of stuff. We do have our brother Joe. He's not on the call today, but he's you know he's an integral part of this team. You know, he's a strong leader on the team. He moved home. You know, hasn't taken a salary for the last 4 years, and kind of lived in my basement for a couple of years and just hustled all the way through it. And you know, we wouldn't be here without him. We wouldn't be here without Josh or Allie too. So just we again, when I say this, like we are the unicorns in the state. I think we see the value and even helping other license holders try to figure out pathways forward to partner up and create economies of scale together. And you know, a veteran-owned company. You know, Josh was in the cannabis space for a long time, doing things that he had to do to survive. And you know, we have a well-rounded team that we're excited to be able to give back and really do this the right way in our minds. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it today.
Yeah. Yeah. And Allie, Josh, did you anything before we go? Did you have any parting thoughts? Just wanted to give you both the space. Cool.
I don't. I've said all that I think we wanted to say. So again, we really appreciate you, you know, taking the time to talk with us and helping us tell our story. I think that's where we have a big opportunity is in telling our story because our heads are down working. So these moments are really important to us and really special. So thank you for giving us the space to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate your time. Josh, thank you.
Yeah, no closing thoughts. I appreciate your time today and letting us get our story out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Josh, Allie, DJ, thank you so much. You're welcome in here anytime. And you extended an invitation to me. Sounds like I might be visiting you all in the future. So we'll work out the finer details on that. But folks, I hope you found as much value in this conversation as I did. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Thank you.